Doing it. I think we're all, this is what normally happens is that we're recording even though this is like saying it's set up because of the lag.
Yeah, and normally I'm on my Uzi, what's it? Do you look in? No, and then you can go to Zoom so we can see ourselves in Zoom. Okay.
Hello.
Whoa, look at us! Together!
And Ruby's here.
I should come in a little bit here.
There's Rubino.
Oh, you good girl.
There we go.
Okay. Swole Sisters.
Worldwide.
Hello. It's been, I think, like 3 weeks.
It's been 8 weeks since I talked to you. What is that?
Yeah, that's Bare Naked Ladies, I think.
And I said sorry. I don't know. I haven't listened to the radio in a long time.
Oh, yeah, because we don't drive anywhere.
Exactly.
Where you're just listening to serious
I'm listening to like...
Lately, I've been getting into political podcasts.
Too stressful.
Yeah. I don't know.
The world is...
Yeah, it's not upsetting me yet. The one I'm listening to I like because they're kind of like have like a positive edge to it. Mm-hmm. So, and then I watch a lot of the like comedy shows, like the like the Daily Show and stuff like that. I'm a little obsessed with that. So
cool, yeah.
Any hoozle.
Welcome. We are at my house.
Yeah, I guess when we are up close, you don't get like
There's another shelf up there.
It's super cute, and your pineapples. Yeah.
Yeah, it really dawned on me. This isn't even all the pineapples in my life. There's more pineapple stuff. I have pineapple string lights.
I didn't even know this was a thing for you.
I didn't really realize it was a thing either until I started like this and that, and I just was like, oh, there are a lot of pineapples around. Mm-hmm. And I do love pineapple.
Major realization.
Yeah, well, we're
covering some really deep stuff here. I like pineapples.
I enjoy pineapples.
Chicken is good.
This is the fruit episode. I feel like I'm more in here. There we go.
Okay, so I don't know. I'm just going to say this thing that I do whenever I'm into something, like, this is the thing.
A nerd alert.
What's that?
What? I'm sorry?
What did you say?
It's a nerd alert.
Yeah.
But I coughed it.
Well, yeah, and also I can come off as saying that just because I'm interested in this, everybody else in the world needs to be interested in it and do it, mm-hmm. which is not the way I feel about this intuitive eating thing.
Jen's like a freaking evangelical intuitive eater now.
Yeah.
She's like, hello stranger, have you heard of intuitive eating?
Have you made peace with food?
Oh, it's funny.
Because that's one of the principles. We're
going door to door. Oh my god.
That would be such a funny joke. We can wear like ties.
Ties that like the rest of our clothes are like workout clothes.
With leggings.
Oh my god.
It's perfect.
That's actually a really funny idea.
If you make peace with food.
Like, here, eat this
Help
cookie.
us challenge the diet police, the food police.
Yes.
All right. So, intuitive eating. There are 10 principles to it, which Justine had listed, and we thought maybe we'd talk about the first 5. But I think the first
Too many.
You really have to kind of like be on board with the first one before you do any of it.
Yes. And so it's such an interesting thing because I think intuitive eating, there's like mindful eating, and then the idea of mindfulness is a rather broad concept, and mindfulness came into the Western world with yoga. So I think some people are in line with mindfulness. They kind of understand what that means, which is taking mindful action and not taking action just like autopilot action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that mindfulness can be applied in many different areas of our lives.
Well, I think it's also like that command style versus actually like introspection.
Yeah, and asking why, being curious around our actions.
Yeah.
And in that curiosity, we create space, and in that space, we have the ability to actually make a choice, which like cultivating mindfulness, in my opinion, for me in my life, is like finding that space between like thought and action, where I'm like, oh, I actually have room to make a decision where there didn't seem to be room earlier. And for me, in the context of eating, I had been someone who has a history of very restrictive eating mentality, and so when I finally made the decision to eat, there was like no space. It was just like a bulldozer,
Right.
and then which led to overeating. So for me, the mindfulness and the intuitiveness comes from creating that, first of all, not trying not to allow myself to get so hungry.
Yeah, that's
which is
big
important.
thing. Yep.
But also that little bit of space to say and ask myself, we talked about it a little bit, like, what do I actually want to eat? And making actual skillful choices and nurturing choices around my eating instead of just like bulldozering or
So. Which kind of gets to like the first thing that we're going to talk about. The first principle of intuitive eating is rejecting diet culture.
Rejecting the diet mentality.
Yes, there it is, diet mentality.
Do you want me to read this?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Throw out the diet books and magazine articles that offer you the false hope of losing weight quickly, easily, and permanently. Get angry, I like this one, at the lies that have led you to feel as if you were a failure every time a new diet stopped working and you gained back the weight. If you allow even one small hope to linger that a new and better diet might be lurking around the corner, it will prevent you from being free to rediscover intuitive eating. And they say rediscover because intuitive eating is something that we're born with and that we lose while being socialized. So that's why it's a rediscovering process. But I love that. Like, that's so powerful. If you even allow one small hope to linger, that a new and better diet might be lurking around the corner, will prevent you from being free to rediscover intuitive eating. That's tough.
Yeah, I'd say I'm still struggling that. So I have not dieted a lot in the past like 4 years because I have dieted so much in my life, and working with clients and seeing that like yo-yoing and seeing that hope of the new plan and the disappointment when they're not getting the results that they want to see. Like, I start to realize that like emotional, psychological harm that it was doing. So I feel like I have definitely, distanced myself from it. But at the same time, there's always that like, well, maybe at some point I'll just count my calories and I'll lose like 10 pounds. Like, that's always there in the back of my head. So it's, not feeling that way. So it's hard. Yeah.
And it's letting go of, for myself, I think of it as like letting go of like fantasy, Justine. Like, I've had this idea in my mind since I was like 13 of like this version of myself that's like, I used to get the Delia's catalogs. I don't know if you are familiar with that clothing store, but it's like, now looking at it, because I actually looked it up because I was like, I wonder what this looks like now in my mind. They are like children. They're like literally like 13-year-old models. But I remember just being like, one day, like, I'm going to be, like the size 2 or 0 girl. And when I am, like, everything will be like come to me. And it's so obviously sounds really silly, but I think a lot of people live with that idea, whether it's 20 pounds, 10 pounds, 5 pounds, 100 pounds, that they're like, there's this fantasy version of ourselves, and when we can just everything will fall into place, and it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things they talk about is that restriction and even the thought of future restriction.
Yes. Not even the action of restricting,
but the future thought is going to cause, I kind of like the term rebound eating, overeating, binge eating, whatever. It's gonna cause you to overeat at some point and then feel guilty about it.
And even the time, like, I didn't eat really like bread or pasta or sugar for almost an entire year. And the thing about that is, like, I constantly had this underlying thread of anxiety because I knew eventually, whether it was another 5 years or 10 years or whatever, but eventually I could not there would be a point when I would no longer be able to maintain it. That's like this like white knuckling, and unfortunately in our society, we really praise people who, oh, you're so disciplined. Oh, you have so much willpower. And it's like, that is a huge problem, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I love that in the example in the book, they talk about, often doctors will, tell their patients to lose weight as a, like, kind of like a prescription, for health issues. But the diets have like a 90% failure rate. So it's as if they gave you a drug that only works 10% of the time. Like,
would you take it?
Would you pay for that drug?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really wild that like in the medical community, they just don't know what else to do.
Right.
It's so incredible. They just are like, well, lose weight, it's just so.
Try the Mediterranean diet. I've heard a lot of doctors say that. I don't even think they know what the
that means.
Mediterranean diet is.
And think about how disrespectful that is, like with no context of like, who are you speaking to? Like food is not just fuel. I just did a post about that. Like fuel is food is relationships and culture and tradition. And like, could you imagine somebody coming in from like a particular culture where like, food is such a like passed down through generations and they're like, oh, just start eating only right? It's like, that's so ignorant and disrespectful. And it's quite like,
I think it's irresponsible.
Massively irresponsible.
Yeah, I had one client whose doctor, and we're not going to say number of calories or anything, but he gave her
avoid using numbers.
A very low quantity of calories to eat. It was like, just eat this amount.
It's so outrageous.
And I was just so pissed, like, no, tell that person how to do that or anything. Just give them this like
arbitrary
number and
round number.
Follow that.
Yeah, and I think it's hard to accept that doctors are not experts at this, but they truly, truly, truly are not. Even there are registered dietitians who are still giving out pretty scary advice to people when you actually look at the in-depth research that is now behind these studies around dieting and the fact that dieting does not work. In fact, it causes a lot more harm than good.
Yeah, it can cause physical harm, so we can mess with your hormones. And I do know of many, many people that are struggling with cortisol issues, adrenal issues, and all those things from years and years of dieting. Even like, even to the point of having autoimmune diseases that could be connected to the stress of undereating.
Yeah. So I think that one of the biggest tools around rejecting the diet mentality, which might sound like a really tall order, and we're like not mandating this as like a soul sister, like, oh, to be a soul sister, you need to like reject. That's not what we're saying. We talked about it a little bit before we started. I think for me, there are already so many resources for dieting. Like if you are looking for a diet or a meal plan, there's a million places to find that. Like you're not going to not be able to find that.
Right.
So, but it is harder to find an alternative to dieting, which is not dieting. And that is why I think it's important for us to offer this alternative and be a place, like a resource for that. But we certainly don't want to dictate.
Yeah.
Like I was just counting calories with my therapist like 3 or 4 months ago. So like, I'm not like, we're all on a journey, and Jen and I 100% respect wherever it is you are on your journey. But so we just
want to offer something else out there, because I think a lot of times any kind of advice that's coming from personal trainers or nutrition coaches or anything is always related to fat loss. So it just hopefully is refreshing to have advice that really isn't connected to that and doesn't have that as a goal. And I think that's like important to us to put that out there and like have that be out there.
Absolutely. And I think when the message around fitness is always weight loss, people in bigger bodies immediately feel ostracized from the space. Like we want everyone to feel welcome here. Like fitness is for everyone. Movement is a gift that is like, we should, all be taking advantage of, and to be made to feel that for whatever reason, your body is not entitled to movement or entitled to be in a fitness space or moving or lifting or whatever. Like that is a travesty. Like I will not stand for that. So I wanted to read from the book once again. So this is some damaging. So again, this is like, these writers are registered dietitians. Like they have a million accolades and qualifications. Like they're looking at research. This is not like a woo-woo book where they're just like saying their opinions. Like major research went into the writing of this book. Anyway, so damage from dieting, biological and health. So chronic dieting teaches the body to retain more fat when you start eating again. So this is the phenomenon around when people do restrict, when they go back to eating a normal, but oftentimes they will be compensating, so they actually will end up eating more after a diet. But regardless, even if they go back to eating the exact same amount they were eating before the diet, they will gain back the weight plus some. So that is what they're referring to there. Chronic dieting slows the rate of weight loss with each successive attempt to diet. So Jen, decipher that. Chronic diet slows the rate of weight loss with each success. So like if somebody first starts a diet, they're going to lose weight rapidly, and then they stop dieting, they gain it back, and then they go, okay, I'm going to diet again, and then they lose weight not so rapidly, and that will continue on and on throughout the dieting cycle.
Right, and which is off. Like sometimes I feel like it all culminates in menopause. Like,
such a great point,
a lot
Jen.
of these things do. So like this person going through menopause maybe has dieted, and then they like hit all of these hormonal issues that make it really hard to lose weight.
Anyways.
And now they've done like 17 different diets in their lives. And so like
what a great
we have to get like more and more extreme and try to do more and more exercise to like counter things. And
such a great point, Jen. Decreased metabolism, which Jen mentioned. Dieting triggers the body to become more efficient at utilizing calories, and that lowers the body's need for energy. Yep. Increased binges and cravings. So that has like been proven time and time again in humans, rats, butterflies, probably, I don't know, other things.
Binging butterflies.
Increased risk of premature death and heart disease.
Nice.
A 32-year study of more than 3,000 men and women in the Framingham Heart Study has shown that regardless of initial weight, people whose weight repeatedly goes up and down, known as weight cycling or yo-yo dieting, have a higher overall death rate and twice the normal risk of dying of heart disease. These results were independent of cardiovascular risk factors and held true regardless if a person was thin or obese. Think about that. I can't say this word, Jen.
Satiety.
Cause satiety cues to atrophy. I've seen this in a lot of clients. Where generally, because there's like this imposed, like I eat at this time and this is how much, and the idea too of like, and then like they clear their plate, right? Because there's this allotted meal, and you have, so like you might even eat beyond full even when you're dieting, because you're like, oh, I get to eat now, and you're like, eat. So the idea being that the communication, these signals that are sent that are like, hey, like I'm good, you don't need to eat anymore, we stop hearing those.
Oh, even just knowing when you're hungry. I think I know a lot of women that like, they're like, I don't understand what I mean, both things. They don't know what it feels like to be full. They don't understand that. They can't like, recognize that.
Yeah.
And they don't know when they're hungry.
But I bet they know when they're starving, and I bet they know when they're super fucking full. Yeah. Because like that's the thing. It's like there are more subtle signals, right? Like, but we all know that feeling where like, oh, okay, now I've eaten too much. Or the ravenous hunger. But like what Jen's talking about is like these more subtle signals where it's like, hey, I'm hungry, like can we have something? Like those are not being heard. So by the time you hear anything, it's like a yelling voice, like you got to eat now, like it's been hours, like I cannot function anymore, right? And that's when the overeating happens, and then guilt and shame and cycling. And then cause body shape to change. Yo-yo dieters who continually regain less weight, that doesn't matter. We shouldn't even read that. Never mind.
Is that the stomach, the abdominal fat thing?
Don't even. That is a complicated issue, and I do think we should look into that, because I think that that's majorly oversimplified. So anyway, this whole chapter goes on and on, but those are some of the.
And then it does go on to talk about the psychological and emotional issues with dieting, and then it being a precursor to eating disorders as well. So
so what I was going to say before I went off on a total tangent, like an hour ago, is that I think a huge tool around rejecting the diet mentality is actually reading research and reading articles about facts, because we're not just saying dieting doesn't work. Like dieting doesn't work. Dieting doesn't work. Like I don't know how else, like it's hard to understand that. Like, and I think even for me, I'm like, well, yeah, dieting doesn't work for like that person, but like it's gonna work for me, right? Like that's the mentality.
Or
like,
you'll even be like, but I did a diet and it worked.
Right.
Like, where are you now?
Exactly.
Like,
But that's what people, and this is why it's so insidious is like, oh, well, I did, the whole 30 and I did lose weight. So it does work. I didn't have the willpower to keep it up.
Yeah.
Right. So it makes it like we're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We are not the problem. Like our bodies and minds are so incredibly brilliant. Like they will not allow this to happen. Like your body is so smart and so wired in a very particular way. Like you cannot keep these things up. And like the fight against it is so insane and so futile. Just
resistance is futile. I'm sorry.
Maybe thought that was funny.
My sci-fi roots.
Oh my God, Jen, you're such
another
a
nerd alert.
Yeah, so I wrote down damage. I wrote down a few things.
Damage.
That's just where I am in the
So
book.
anyway, if you're wanting to embark on this adventure here, that is something that you would need to accept. And yeah, I think it's something that like I've been slowly building towards over the past several years.
Towards. I mean, and I said this in a video a long time ago, is one of the hardest things. The reason that I stopped doing diets or weight loss with clients was like, I just was like, this has never worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
But here I am.
Yeah.
Trying to say like, oh, this will work for you. Like, I don't know.
I think it's just an implication that that's what you do when you're in this business. I'm reading, I just finished my nutrition certification, and the whole book goes on the premise that the only reason someone would want nutrition coaching would be to either gain or lose weight. Mm-hmm. That would be that's like everything in the book that revolves around that. Mm-hmm. I mean, even training athletes, like how to help athletes maintain proper body composition for their sport.
Right.
So like, that's what we're told. And, we kind of have this idea that like, unless you market to people that way, you're not going to get any business. Like people only want that. So, but then at the same time, over and over again, just watching people be so upset by this all the time. And I look
and obsessed. God.
Obsessed and upset.
Oh, so obsessed and upset about food and eating. It's like, it is difficult to watch. And I feel for people because this is why I am adopting intuitive eating, because I'm like, I'm so sick of wasting so much time and energy on this.
Here we are on Facebook Live talking about it. No.
You have to spread the message, Jen. So it's just really cool. I want to say that you and I are at this place together because I didn't know if we were gonna.
Yeah, I was just curious.
I wasn't sure.
You were all in. You were like, yeah, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna look at this.
Yeah.
I think just because I've been doing this for so long, and I know myself, and I know all of the trains that I've gotten on, so I'm like, and like, who knows? 3 months from now, it might be something different. I'm gonna fully recognize that about myself, about the business, about all of it. But I mean. So far, I'm liking it. And we can talk more about like the actual food aspect of it, the things that we're experimenting with, because that's been interesting. But we wanted to start with just the rejecting diet culture.
Rejecting diet culture is number one.
Yeah. Numero uno.
And that is something that we will be true to within Soul Sisters. Like, although we do not judge others for like where they are in their own journey with food and eating and everything, because we really believe in body autonomy, and that means that you get to do whatever you want with your body, and we support you and want you to be safe, but we support you and understand. But that being said, like we we are actively rejecting diet mentality. And in this sense, it doesn't mean we're going to be bashing like, oh, like you're doing paleo, like, oh, that's so stupid. Right. It's not like that. What it means is that we just will not be, we're not going to be promoting weight loss. We are completely weight inclusive and weight neutral. So like, we're not promoting one body weight or shape over another within our group. We do not champion or put on a pedestal certain body types. That's a huge one. So like, we're never going to blatantly say or even insinuate that one body is better than another. If we do, it is a mistake and we will apologize, because I know I'm still like learning that. And like, this is like a learning in public thing. Like, we're still babies in this process. And I know I still say things sometimes where I'm like, oh,
sometimes, absolutely. And I hope that everybody here, if they hear or see something that is not inclusive come from us, like, we're really happy to have you let us know about that.
Yeah, and like the call out culture is like, there's two ways, right? You can call people out, which is like doing it in public, right? That would be like a public, like writing on somebody's Facebook wall, like, this person said this and that's wrong. And then calling people in is like a private message. Like, and I've been called in before, and it was really like one of the best things that ever happened to me.
I think that like set this whole change off, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was called in and like it was very, very uncomfortable. But it really helped me. So that is important. I had another thought while I was talking, but then it escaped me. It's gone now.
So I think we'll see what people think of this first little bit here. And
does anyone even know what we're talking about? I don't even
people
know.
Are like, intuitive eating sounds good. I mean, the whole premise, as we said in the beginning, is the idea that like deep down you have the knowledge to eat when hungry and stop when full and enjoy food.
Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
And we've just been overcomplicating it.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so
okay, I guess that's it.
I'm ready. I don't want to go into the next one because I feel like it's too much.
It's too much.
But we'll do another live next week.
We're gonna go down the list. There's 10 principles.
Oh yeah, you're in this for 10 weeks, people.
So fucking buckle up
until we're on to the next thing.
Exactly. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody, and we will catch you on the flip side.